Hey guys, tonight we wander far. So far that your sneakers won't help you. You're stepping barefoot into the dust of prehistory, where beauty didn't come in pallets or tubes, but in the earth itself. You can almost smell the mineral tang of damp cave walls, see torchlight trembling on rough stone, and feel the gritty brush of red ochre between your fingertips. Somewhere in that flicker, a human, maybe your ancestor, presses pigment onto skin, not to look pretty, but to mean something. Maybe it's magic, maybe it's fear, or maybe, deep down, it's the first spark of self-expression that will never go out. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead. Drop your location and local time in the comments so I can picture who's sharing this quiet moment with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand at the mouth of a cave, 40,000 years back, breathing in air so cold it stings your teeth. Inside, the walls bloom with red, black, and ochre shapes. Hands, bison, strange spirals. You notice that some of the pigments smear along the artists' faces, not just their art. Historians still argue whether it was by accident or ceremony. But either way, your species had discovered body paint before farming, before writing, before shoes. That smear of color wasn't decoration. It was identity, tribe, maybe even love. The main ingredient back then? Iron oxide, red ochre. Mixed with animal fat, charcoal, crushed plants, or blood, it clung to skin like a badge of belonging. Some researchers say it also kept away insects and sunburns, basically prehistoric sunscreen. Others think the ritual of painting each other bonded small groups, turning survival into community. You crouch by the fire, grinding ochre with a stone, and suddenly, you're not just surviving, you're performing the oldest art form on Earth, transformation. Fast forward a few millennia. You wander into early hunter-gatherer camps in what is now South Africa. There, women and men alike streak their bodies with geometric red marks. Maybe it's a signal of fertility. Maybe it's a warning to spirits. A cheeky voice in your head whispers. So, the first influencer was probably holding a chunk of clay instead of a ring light. Yeah, pretty much. Makeup in these moments isn't vanity, it's armor. When a warrior coats his skin with ash before a hunt, he's part camouflage, part ritual performer. When a woman smears yellow pigment under her eyes, she's aligning with a deity, or just flexing her access to a rare mineral deposit. In a world ruled by superstition and survival, color equals power. Archaeologists once found a 100,000-year-old abalone shell in a South African cave, filled with red pigment and a tiny stir stick made of bone. Think about that. Someone, way before cities or kings, mixed a cosmetic recipe and stored it neatly in a shell case, the world's first compact kit, long before Sephora or Pockets. You can almost hear them brag, "Oh, this shade, locally sourced, ethical, hand-ground." Now shift to ancient burial sites. Bodies dusted in red, sometimes entirely covered. It's the original blush, but also a passport to the afterlife. To paint the dead is to say, beauty doesn't die, it travels with you. That belief, linking color to the soul, will echo across every civilization you'll meet tonight. But here's a strange thought. Was this art about attraction? Historians still argue whether early humans wore pigment to appeal to others or to please gods. Maybe both. Maybe painting your face red before a moon ritual made you irresistible and divine. The line between beauty and magic has always been slippery. And then there's the fringe theory. the one that makes you squint in curiosity. Some anthropologists claim early pigments evolved not from hunting or religion, but from mosquito avoidance. Imagine it. All this ancient glamour started because someone got tired of being bitten. The first beauty hack born out of bug bites. You almost want to thank that annoyed ancestor. As you walk further through time, pigments diversify. Clays, crushed beetles, soot from fires, all become ingredients in an ever-expanding palette. The tools? Fingers, bones, maybe feathers. The lighting, moonlight, and firelight. You realize something comforting. Humans never really changed. Whether it's a smoky eye or a ceremonial stripe, it's still about sending a message. I belong, I desire, or I defy. You pass a small riverbank where reflections shimmer. A young woman leans over the water, smearing red lines along her cheeks. There's no mirror, but the ripples. No audience but the sky. Yet the gesture feels intimate, almost sacred. You watch her smile faintly at her reflection, a flash of pride before the ripples blur her image. For a second, you could swear she's whispering across time. See me. That whisper becomes the heartbeat of every civilization you'll touch next. Each one takes that primal gesture and polishes it, ritualizes it, commodifies it. Makeup becomes currency, power, seduction, and storytelling. It records status, gender, faith, rebellion, all layered over skin like chapters in a secret book. As the fire in your imagined cave fades to embers, you catch your reflection in a puddle, streaked with the same red ochre you've been tracing for hours. It's messy, uneven, alive. You look fierce and a little ridiculous, but you understand something new. Makeup isn't an invention. It's an instinct. The same impulse that drives someone today to swipe on mascara before a meeting or gloss before a date. It's the same spark that made cave dwellers reach for color in the dark. You lean back, eyes half closed, the night humming around you. Ash settles on your hands. Somewhere in the flicker of ancient firelight, the story of beauty begins. Not in mirrors, but in the mud. You step out of the cold caves and into the shimmering heat of the Nile Valley. The air smells like papyrus, honey, and smoke from the offerings left for gods, whose eyes seem to follow you everywhere. The river gleams like a silver ribbon through golden sand, and every reflection in it seems to be wearing eyeliner. Welcome to Egypt, where makeup stops being ritual alone and becomes religion, medicine, and politics, all blended in one intoxicating coal pot. You walk through a bustling marketplace in Thebes, hearing merchants shout over the calls of ibis birds. "Finest malachite for your eyes," one cries. "Imported galena from the east," says another. You pause at a stall shimmering with powders, greens, blues, blacks, and golds. A woman dips a slender reed stick into a tiny bronze jar, swirls it, and draws a dark line along her eyelid with divine precision. You watch her eyes transform, suddenly sharper, stronger, almost hypnotic. You think, yeah, she invented the winged eyeliner before TikTok did. Historians still argue whether Egyptian eyeliner was more spiritual or practical. The black coal, made from ground galena mixed with animal fat, wasn't just decoration. It helped deflect the blinding sun and even killed bacteria. So basically the world's first antimicrobial makeup. Cleopatra wasn't just stylish. She was rocking the ancient equivalent of SPF and antiseptic in one stroke. And that iconic green shadow? That came from malachite, crushed so fine it shimmered like the Nile under the sun. To paint your eyelids in that shade meant invoking Horus, the falcon god whose eyes symbolized protection and healing. So every swipe of makeup was like whispering a prayer. keep me safe, make me divine. You stroll through a temple courtyard now, past women grinding red ochre for lips and cheeks. Their mirrors are polished bronze, catching flashes of the desert sky. A servant holds one up to her mistress, and the reflection looks molten, half human, half goddess. There's no shame in beauty here. To paint yourself is to honor the gods, to mirror their perfection. In a culture obsessed with immortality, appearance wasn't vanity. It was a preview of the afterlife. Perfume hangs heavy in the air. Lotus, myrrh, cinnamon. People aren't just painting faces. They're scenting souls. Cones of perfumed wax melt slowly atop heads during banquets, releasing fragrance as the night unfolds. You can imagine sitting at a feast, smelling faintly like lotus blossoms while your eyeliner refuses to smudge even in the heat. Ancient waterproof mascara? Basically, yes. The elite had makeup rooms, literal sanctuaries lined with alabaster jars and gold brushes. Servants prepared pigments daily, adjusting shades depending on the season, the ritual, or the mood. Even men joined in. Pharaohs wore heavy eye paint, believing it enhanced their godlike aura. If you think men's grooming is modern, you haven't seen Ramses II's makeup case. Of course, not everyone admired this obsession. Some priests warned that too much adornment tempted spirits or offended deities. Yet here's the paradox. The same priests used kohl to line their own eyes during rituals. Historians still argue whether that was devotion or just divine-level hypocrisy. And then there's the quirky bit, the one that makes you raise an eyebrow. Some makeup ingredients came from crocodile dung. Yes, seriously. Mixed with honey and oil, it was used as a skin treatment. Ancient Egyptians believed it tightened the skin and preserved youth. You wonder which brave soul volunteered to test that theory. Let's just say, dermatology has come a long way. Even burial rituals spark with cosmetics. You peer into a tomb. There's a painted chest filled with jars of pigment, brushes, and perfume cones laid beside the mummified queen. She's been powdered for eternity, lips tinted, eyes rimmed in black. Makeup wasn't left behind. It was carried into the afterlife, just in case the next world had social gatherings. By now you realize, in Egypt, beauty and belief were inseparable. Every stroke of kohl, every dab of ochre, every breath of perfume stitched the human to the divine. You stand before a mural showing Isis anointing Osiris, her painted fingers glowing under faded color. Somewhere between myth and makeup, the story of power begins. Because beauty here isn't passive, it's a statement, a shield, and a spell. Cleopatra's eyeliner wasn't flirting, it was politics. Her face became a symbol of sovereignty, an empire's billboard. She weaponized allure, using color like strategy. You can almost picture her at her vanity, dipping her brush, saying to herself, "Let Rome underestimate me." The sun dips low, gilding the desert in molten orange. You kneel beside the river, coal pot in hand, and trace a line beneath your eye. The wind stirs, and suddenly your reflection looks ancient. You're part priest, part performer, part dreamer. Around you, the Nile whispers secrets older than words, about pigment, power, and the promise that beauty, when wielded wisely, never fades. And as night falls, you notice something. The stars above look like powdered gold scattered across a dark lid of sky. You smile. Even the universe seems to be wearing makeup. The sands shift beneath your feet as you leave the Nile's shimmer behind and step into another cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. The air here is thicker, scented with oil and smoke, and the soundscape hums with life. River barges creaking, merchants calling out in Akkadian, bronze tools ringing against stone. You're in the land between two rivers, where temples stretch toward the clouds, and beauty, like everything else, is meticulously recorded on clay tablets. You pass a ziggurat, its sun-baked bricks glowing amber. At its base, artisans sit grinding powders, their tools gleaming like tiny moons. Here, cosmetics aren't just luxury, they're technology. You crouch beside a merchant who's blending crushed gemstones with sesame oil to make a shimmering eye paste. The color flashes green and blue as he stirs. He looks up at you and grins. For the goddess Inanna. But you could wear it too. Ah, Inanna, later known as Ishtar, the goddess of love, war, and yes, glamour. Her statues show her with darkly rimmed eyes and shimmering lips, the original celestial influencer. Her beauty was divine propaganda, her painted face a weapon as potent as any spear. You can almost hear her whisper through time, "Adornment is power." Historians still argue whether cosmetics here were mostly for ritual or for daily life. But we know one thing, both men and women used them. Clay tablets describe ointments, balms, and oils used to soften skin baked by the Mesopotamian sun. The ingredients? Things like sesame oil, beeswax, and powdered minerals. Luxuries traded from afar. And then there's one wild recipe that makes you blink. Ground pearls mixed with date juice. Talk about a glow-up. As you walk through the narrow streets of Ur, you notice something curious. Everyone glistens slightly, not from sweat, but from layers of scented oil. It's not perfume in the modern sense. It's skincare, status, and survival all at once. Oil kept the dust off, cooled the skin, and made even the poorest laborer look a bit celestial under the torchlight. You trail your fingers through a bowl of oil and catch your reflection. It distorts, almost dreamlike. There's even evidence of early tweezers and razors made from copper. Eyebrow grooming wasn't an Instagram trend. It was already sacred business 5,000 years ago. Sumerian poets described perfect brows as bows of the gods. And honestly, you can't help but picture Inanna checking her reflection in a polished bronze mirror before smiting her enemies. Just a little blush before battle. Now, here's your quirky fact of the night. Mesopotamians might have been the first people to invent lip tint. Archaeologists found tiny cosmetic jars containing crushed red rocks and rust minerals, possibly mixed with animal fat to create a primitive lipstick. Picture a high priestess applying that deep crimson hue before stepping into a temple ceremony, her lips gleaming under torchlight as she chants hymns. You imagine her thinking, "Let them remember my voice and my shade." But beauty here isn't just sensual, it's spiritual. The Sumerians believed the gods themselves were radiant, and to shine, literally, was to reflect divinity. When people applied oils, they weren't just moisturizing, they were symbolically aligning with the heavens. Some scholars say even statues of gods were polished daily with these mixtures. The divine didn't glow naturally, they were given that glow. And yet, in between these sacred rituals, vanity crept in like a familiar ghost. Wealthy women competed over imported pigments, and noblemen commissioned perfume blends as personalized as signatures. One tablet even lists the formula for the oil that pleases the king's nose. You can almost imagine palace courtiers gossiping about who smelled like frankincense and who clearly hadn't updated their fragrance routine. Still, the most fascinating detail comes from the city of Babylon. The famous hanging gardens, if they ever existed, weren't just lush with plants but said to have concealed perfume workshops beneath them. Picture this, the scent of roses and myrrh drifting upward through the terraces, while chemists below distilled beauty potions for the queen. Science and scent mingling in the same humid air. Historians still argue whether those gardens were real or poetic fantasy, but you like to think that if they were, they smelled incredible. And speaking of scent, here's a little-known tidbit. Mesopotamians believed each person's smell carried moral meaning. A sweet fragrance symbolized purity, foul odor, sin. So bathing and perfuming weren't just for vanity. They were moral acts. If you smelled bad, you were spiritually suspicious. No pressure, right? You pause at a riverbank where two women wash linens and gossip softly. One dabs oil on her wrist, the other smears something golden across her cheeks. They're not royal, not rich, just human. And yet, in their small gestures, you recognize the same urge from those cave painters and Egyptian queens to assert control over the body in a chaotic world, to make beauty when life feels brittle. As night falls, torches flicker across the water. You sit near a jar of glowing oil and think about how far the idea of makeup has already traveled, from ochre to coal to crushed gemstones. You can feel the pattern forming. Each civilization takes what came before and adds its own signature. Somewhere, a priest sings a hymn to Inanna. You are she who shines in the night, adorned with light itself. You smile in the darkness, realizing that even now, every time someone puts on highlighter before going out, they're still chasing that same shimmer of divinity. The air cools, and you tilt your head back, watching the constellations blur. The stars feel closer here, as if the heavens themselves are leaning down to check their reflection in the twin rivers. And for a brief, glowing moment, you understand why ancient people worshipped both gods and mirrors. They weren't separate. They were one and the same. You blink, and the sands of Babylon fade into white marble. The air shifts, warmer, scented faintly of olive oil and crushed herbs. Columns rise like elegant ribs against a bright Aegean sky. You're in ancient Greece now, where beauty is philosophy, symmetry is virtue, and even your nose can be a moral argument. You walk through the agora of Athens, the market humming with voices and laughter. A vendor waves you over to his stall, jars of white powder, tiny bronze mirrors, fragrant oils in clay amphorae. For the perfect complexion, he says proudly. You smile, half tempted, because here, beauty isn't about standing out. It's about balance, harmony. The Greeks would have judged even your freckles through the lens of geometry. You follow a group of women toward a shaded courtyard. They're chattering, adjusting their chitons, and dipping sponges into small pots of pale paste. That paste, you learn, is made from white lead. Yes, lead. The same substance we now know can quietly destroy a body. But back then, it was the gold standard of refinement. Pale skin meant you didn't toil in the sun. You belonged indoors, among books, lyres, and luxury. One philosopher might have put it this way: the skin reflects the soul. You can't help thinking, yeah, and maybe the poison too. Historians still argue whether Greek men found painted faces alluring or deceitful. Plays like those of Aristophanes mock women for their painted masks, calling them liars of the flesh. Yet those same men filled their homes with statues of Aphrodite, her lips tinted, her cheeks faintly blushed in marble. Hypocrisy. Thy name is Athens, but makeup here wasn't just disguise. It was logic, rendered in pigment. To the Greeks, proportion was sacred. A well-balanced face mirrored a well-balanced mind. Women applied rouge to create harmony between forehead, nose, and chin. Even eyebrows had moral weight, arched too high, and you were frivolous. too low, and you were dour. You imagine a woman sighing to her maid, "Please, not too virtuous. Just the right amount of goodness today." You wander into a bathhouse, steam curling around mosaics. Women soak in olive oil and water, their laughter echoing off the marble. One of them crushes a handful of flowers into her oil and rubs it along her arms until her skin glows. The result isn't glitzy, it's serene. Greek beauty was about charis, the divine grace that made you appear both human and touched by gods. No eyeliner wings or glitter, just soft light meeting soft skin. And here's your quirky moment of the night. Some sources suggest Greek women used burnt cork to darken their brows, connecting them into a single line. The unibrow wasn't a meme. It was a statement. A continuous brow symbolized intelligence and purity. You picture a philosopher's wife looking into her polished bronze mirror, touching up her unibrow proudly while Plato argues about virtue in the next room. Still, this obsession with outward perfection carried darker edges. The word cosmos in Greek meant both order and adornment. To beautify oneself was to participate in cosmic harmony. But step too far, and you tipped into vanity, hubris, the mortal sin of outshining the gods. You imagine the internal monologue. Yes, I want to look divine, but not too divine. Don't want Zeus jealous again. As you stroll past a sculptor's workshop, chips of marble dust glitter in the sunlight. Inside, a young apprentice is carving Aphrodite's face, studying a live model. Her expression is serene, distant, eternal. Makeup and sculpture blur here. Both try to freeze beauty in time, and both fail in the most human way possible. Some historians believe Greek women used honey masks to soften their skin, mixing it with milk or crushed figs. Cleopatra might have stolen the idea later, but the Greeks were doing spa days first. Picture this: olive oil massages, rosewater rinses, and gossip about whose husband got caught reciting poetry to the wrong muse. Ancient wellness culture, complete with drama. As twilight spreads, you wander to a theater carved into the hillside. The masks of tragedy and comedy stare from the stage, painted in exaggerated tones. Even here, in art, pigment defines emotion. Rouged cheeks for joy, pale faces for sorrow. You realize makeup has leapt beyond vanity into performance. The Greeks didn't just wear it, they philosophized it. And the biggest debate? Whether beauty was born or built. Some argued it was divine gift. Others swore it could be taught, trained, enhanced. A woman should improve what nature began, said one poet. Yet another countered, to paint is to lie. Sound familiar? The same arguments rage today under Instagram posts and skincare ads. Humanity really hasn't evolved much in the comments section. You sit on a marble step as stars rise over the Acropolis. The city glows faintly under lamplight, and you catch your reflection in a bronze bowl filled with water. The faint white sheen on your skin, the rosy tint on your lips. It's all an illusion, and yet it feels deeply true. Beauty, you realize, has never been about deceiving others. It's about crafting a version of yourself that can survive scrutiny by gods, by lovers, by time. A breeze carries the faint scent of myrtle, the plant sacred to Aphrodite. Somewhere nearby, a priestess lights a lamp and murmurs a prayer. May the face reflect the soul, and the soul stay kind. You close your eyes, hearing the whisper of olive leaves. For a civilization obsessed with logic, the Greeks left one mystery unsolved: why a little color on the lips could make a heart beat faster. You step down from marble steps into a street paved with cobblestones and echoes. The air is heavy with incense and iron, the smell of empire. You've arrived in ancient Rome, where luxury and excess reign, where beauty is a civic duty, and where almost everything, including your reflection, is political. You stroll past bathhouses, perfumeries, and barbershops buzzing with life. Slaves hurry between marble fountains carrying trays of cosmetics, oils, and mirrors. In this empire of spectacle, image is everything. You can't be seen in public looking unpolished. That's not vanity. It's Roman discipline. Even generals wore a bit of oil to make their skin gleam before parades. Imagine Julius Caesar checking his reflection before addressing the Senate. Et tu, highlighter? Here, cosmetics have evolved into a science. You stop by a merchant selling cerussa, that infamous white lead paste the Greeks adored. Roman women, especially the patrician elite, apply it liberally to appear delicate, refined, untouchable by labor. Beneath the whiteness, a hint of rouge made from red iron oxide or crushed cinnabar brings life to their cheeks. The combination, ethereal and deadly. Historians still argue whether cerussa caused more admiration or slow poisoning. Probably both. And yet, beauty here is a moral performance. The Roman philosopher Seneca once scoffed that painted faces were lies, disguising corruption. But his wife, Paulina, reportedly wore shimmering powder that caught the candlelight. You can almost hear her saying, "Yes, I read philosophy too, darling, but a little blush won't hurt civilization." You step into a Roman villa where a noblewoman sits before a polished silver mirror. Her servant applies color to her lips using a brush made from goose feathers. The pigment? Mercury sulfide. Toxic, yes, but gorgeous. She catches your eye in the mirror and smiles knowingly. Beauty, she says softly, is worth the gamble. Perfume here isn't just fragrance, it's empire in a bottle. Rome imports scents from Arabia, India, and Africa. Frankincense, myrrh, cardamom. The wealthy wear them like status badges. Some even rub themselves with saffron-infused oils before dinner parties. Imagine stepping into a Roman banquet hall, the air thick with roasted meat, wine, and a dozen competing perfumes. You'd leave dizzy, but radiant. And then there's the quirky detail. Roman women tinted their hair using pigeon droppings and leeches fermented in vinegar. Yes, leeches. Apparently, the concoction gave a glossy black sheen. You can't help but laugh quietly. Ancient self-care meets pure chaos. Somewhere, a Roman influencer probably bragged, all natural, cruelty-free ingredients. You wander into a therme, the Roman baths. It's more social club than spa. Citizens scrub, gossip, and trade beauty recipes. You overhear a woman discussing a new skin cream made from barley flour and donkey milk. Another boasts of her favorite mask, crushed pearls mixed with honey. Cleopatra allegedly imported barrels of it. If Sephora existed back then, it would have collapsed under the demand. Makeup wasn't just a women's world either. Men used scented oils, plucked brows, even tinted lips before public events. The Emperor Nero reportedly had entire rooms dedicated to perfumes and unguents. Some historians say he burned more incense in one day than small provinces could afford in a year. The Romans took extra to divine levels. But behind all this glamour hides an unease. Conservative writers, like Pliny the Elder, condemned cosmetics as moral decay. They claimed Rome's greatness was fading beneath powder and perfume. Yet those same critics quietly owned jars of imported face creams themselves. Hypocrisy, the empire's favorite fashion trend. You walk through a marketplace at dusk. The colors of sunset melt into the gold of jewelry, the crimson of lipstick, the shimmer of skin dusted in mica. Makeup is everywhere, woven into ritual and rebellion alike. Prostitutes wear brighter pigments to lure clients. Priestesses wear subtle hues to honor Venus. Every tint, every scent tells a story about class, power, and identity. And still, the Romans, ever practical, found reasons beyond beauty. Many claimed certain pigments protected against evil spirits or disease. Kohl guarded the eyes. Cinnabar attracted love. Saffron blessed marriages. You smile at how humanity keeps finding holiness in vanity. Then, under the same Roman sky, you find another kind of ritual. One quieter, more personal. A young woman stands by a fountain, washing off her face paint as stars rise. The water glows around her hands. Maybe she's tired of the act, or maybe she just wants to feel her real skin again. For a moment, she isn't a wife, or a courtesan, or a symbol. She's just human, someone trying to balance the mask and the mirror. You linger, feeling that same paradox settle over you. Rome perfected the art of appearances, but it also invented the anxiety of perfection. Beneath every layer of powder lies the same ancient question whispered through centuries. Am I enough without it? The fountain's reflection flickers. Behind it, the empire glows like gold leaf over marble. Beautiful, temporary, destined to crack. You turn away, realizing that even in the most powerful civilization on Earth, beauty is still just dust and pigment, and yet somehow, it conquers hearts more completely than armies ever could. You leave the grandeur of Rome and begin a long, dusty journey along the Silk Road, the artery of trade stretching from the Mediterranean to the heart of China. Caravans trundle past, camels' bells jingling, dust curling in the wind, carrying not only silk and spices, but secrets. Secrets that will change the way the world perceives beauty forever. You trudge beside merchants whose voices shout in a dozen tongues, each one hawking pigments, perfumed oils, and mysterious powders harvested from lands you can barely imagine. Here, cosmetics are currency. A single jar of indigo from India or vermilion from Persia can elevate a minor merchant to minor royalty. You peer into a small crate, seeing exotic roots, crushed beetles, powdered gemstones, and honey-sweet scented pastes. One merchant demonstrates a paste that turns pale skin into a reflective, almost porcelain-like glow. For nobility, he hisses, or those who wish to appear noble. You nod, secretly impressed, because status is as much a product of color as coin. Historians still argue whether the Silk Road spread makeup primarily for trade, for ritual, or simply for vanity. Likely all three. Ideas traveled as fast as goods. Techniques, tools, recipes, even beliefs about divine protection through pigment. You watch a small group of travelers exchange stories. A Persian woman showing a Chinese merchant how to smear cinnabar for lips. A Central Asian man demonstrating a subtle eyebrow shape, the way it signifies virtue. Each stroke of color is a lesson in geography, diplomacy, and aesthetic diplomacy. Your attention is drawn to a stall lit by the flicker of lanterns. A silk scarf flutters in the wind, and beneath it, powders shimmer. Green malachite, red ochre, black soot, and mica flecks. A small girl dips her finger into the malachite, tracing a delicate line along her mother's eyelid. You lean closer, catching the scent, a mixture of flowers, minerals, and earth. Perfume isn't just decoration, it's a coded message, a sign of refinement and wealth. A quirky detail emerges. Some pigments from the East are made from insects. Cochineal. A little shocking for a modern mind, but entirely normal here. You imagine a Silk Road traveler whispering to a curious child, "These tiny creatures give our lips the color of sunsets." And somehow it feels sacred, magical, and slightly bizarre all at once. Traveling further, you encounter ritual practices. In one tent, a Mongolian shaman applies soot and colored pastes to his face before a festival, connecting the wearer to ancestral spirits. In another, Indian traders paint their cheeks with turmeric and sandalwood to mark religious festivals. Even along a dusty road, makeup is about survival, identity, and spirituality. You note the pattern. Across lands, civilizations, and climates, humans have always layered meaning beneath pigment. The Silk Road isn't just about the materials, it's about technique. You observe a young woman demonstrating how to mix crushed petals with oil for a subtle blush. The resulting color is delicate, yet durable, designed to survive long travel under the desert sun. A traveler passing by whispers in awe. Such subtlety is beauty itself. Historians still debate whether these innovations were practical, ritualistic, or purely aesthetic, but the truth is probably a delightful blend of all three. By nightfall, the caravans stop beside a river. Lanterns glint off jars of pigment. Shadows of camels sway over the sand, and the scent of incense drifts through the air. You notice that every color, every stroke, every aromatic oil is a bridge, connecting empires, religions, and people who might never meet. Color is language, and the Silk Road is its dictionary. You crouch to watch a merchant crush rose petals into a powder, then mix them with oil to create a subtle red for lips and cheeks. A Persian trader whispers, "This is how we leave a mark, even when we depart." You reflect on how these small, quiet acts of beauty carry identity, memory, and intention across continents. Makeup has become more than art. It is diplomacy, spirituality, and the shared heartbeat of humanity. As stars begin to pierce the dark sky above the desert, the caravans settle, fires glowing like molten jewels. You realize that beauty has traveled farther than armies, faiths, or kings. Across mountains, rivers, and deserts, humans have chased pigment, perfume, and reflection. And somewhere in that vast, dusty expanse, the idea that makeup can transform not just faces, but the very perception of self has become universal. The wind rustles, carrying hints of jasmine, sandalwood, and distant incense. You feel it brushing against your skin and realize that each scent, each color, is a story waiting to be read, whispered, and remembered. Somewhere along the Silk Road, beauty isn't just survival, it's civilization itself. The caravan fades into misty mountains, and suddenly you find yourself in the imperial courts of ancient China. The air is heavy with incense and silk, scented with cassia and osmanthus. Courtiers glide across marble floors on embroidered slippers, their robes whispering like bamboo leaves. Here, makeup is ritualized, codified, and an art form in its own right, as precise as calligraphy. You watch a young court lady kneeling beside a lacquered table, her hands steady as she crushes mineral pigments into a fine powder. She dips a brush made from soft squirrel hair into cinnabar, painting delicate lines across her lips and cheeks. The color is vivid but balanced, never ostentatious. She pauses, lifts a bronze mirror, and adjusts her blackened brows, shaped into elegant arches. You realize that in this world, every stroke of pigment is loaded with meaning, status, refinement, moral virtue, even spiritual alignment. Historians still argue whether Chinese women first used lead-based powders for beauty or ritual. The answer is likely intertwined. Pale skin signifies nobility, while subtle blush suggests youth and vitality. The elite avoid sun at all costs, cultivating a delicate porcelain complexion. You notice servants carrying parasols for their mistresses, shading them like living paintings. It's not vanity, its survival within a hierarchy of aesthetic values. Perfume is equally essential. Aromatic sachets filled with jasmine, sandalwood, and powdered pearls are tucked into robes. A faint trace of fragrance signals education, refinement, and awareness of etiquette. You catch a hint of something floral mixed with earth, the unmistakable aroma of silk scrolls and ink. In this court, scent, pigment, and posture create a symphony of impression. Here's a quirky tidbit. During the Tang Dynasty, some women applied powdered lead not only to pale their faces, but to create intricate designs around their eyes. These patterns often resembled clouds, flowers, or mythical creatures. You smile, imagining a court official squinting to discern whether it's art or rebellion, beauty as both self-expression and subtle defiance. And yet, makeup here is not only about aesthetics, it's linked to moral philosophy. Confucian ideals emphasize restraint and propriety. Too much color is criticized as frivolous or immoral, while well-applied makeup demonstrates discipline and education. Historians still debate how much these rules were enforced versus ignored, but the tension between naturalness and adornment is palpable. You wander to a garden courtyard where a stream trickles over jade stones. Young ladies practice the art of hua mei, painting delicate patterns onto their foreheads. Some scholars suggest this was to attract good fortune. Others argue it was a form of identity among court factions. You dip a finger in water and trace a line on your own palm. It's surprisingly satisfying, almost meditative. Hair is equally ritualized. Women use black ink or soot to enhance color, forming elaborate buns adorned with gold pins and pearls. Red threads sometimes decorate hair for festivals or rituals. Men, too, shape and powder their hair, though subtly, reflecting status and decorum rather than flamboyance. Makeup and hairstyling here are as much about signaling one's place in society as they are about personal expression. The fringe theory you'll enjoy. Some ancient Chinese cosmetics may have incorporated ground gemstones like jade or pearls, not just for color but for supposed health benefits. Wearing crushed pearls was thought to improve complexion and longevity. You imagine the tiny sparkling grains pressed gently onto skin, a literal infusion of luxury into daily life. You wander into a quiet hall, noticing faint, geometric blush patterns painted on several faces. The room smells faintly of sandalwood and lotus. A teacher demonstrates brush techniques, explaining how to balance pigment and symmetry. Even today you can feel the discipline, the careful attention, and the centuries of refinement that have gone into each subtle hue. By dusk, lanterns glow in red and gold, casting warm light on polished marble floors. You catch your reflection in a small bronze mirror, pale cheeks, delicate lips, artful brows. You realize that beauty here is a language of patience, precision, and cultural memory. Every layer of color, every stroke of powder carries centuries of knowledge. As you step into the night, the moon casts silver on flowing silk robes. Somewhere in the distance, the faintest whistle of wind brushes against bamboo. You inhale the mingled scents of pigment, incense, and the earth itself, realizing that makeup has become both armor and poetry, an intimate visual story whispered silently through generations. The delicate lantern light fades behind you as you journey south, and suddenly the warm aroma of turmeric and jasmine fills your senses. You've arrived in ancient India, where makeup intertwines with devotion, celebration, and ritual in ways that feel both familiar and sacred. The air hums with temple bells and the soft murmur of prayers, and every stroke of color on skin is laden with meaning beyond vanity. You walk along a riverbank near a temple, noticing women applying mehendi, henna designs that curl like vines across their hands and feet. You kneel to watch a young bride-to-be carefully trace geometric and floral patterns, the deep reddish-brown stain promising luck, fertility, and protection. The designs are so precise, you almost want to touch them, though of course that would be inappropriate. Historians still argue whether henna originated as a cosmetic, a ritual tool, or both. The truth is likely a graceful mixture of the two. Cheeks and lips are tinted naturally with crushed beetles, saffron, or powdered gemstones. You catch a whiff of sandalwood mixed with rose water, and your senses tiptoe between indulgence and meditation. In India, the idea of beauty is inseparable from spirituality. Applying makeup is a ritual, a prayer, and an offering, transforming the mundane act of adornment into a sacred gesture. You pause to watch a group of women preparing turmeric paste for their faces and arms. Bright golden against their skin, it symbolizes purification and auspiciousness. The paste not only brightens the complexion, but is believed to repel negativity, disease, and evil spirits. You can almost hear one woman teasing another. Don't smear it too thick, or the gods will think you're trying too hard. A little humor, a little devotion, all woven together. Eyes are lined with kohl, applied with sticks carved from wood or bone. The black pigment isn't purely decorative. It protects against glare, prevents infections, and is said to ward off the evil eye. Imagine generations of mothers and daughters whispering, a little for protection, a little for charm, as they trace the dark rim along lashes. Even today, the idea resonates. Beauty can be armor. Here's a quirky tidbit. In some regions, women would apply a mixture of sandalwood, milk, and camphor to create a cooling paste for summer festivals. It wasn't just about glowing skin. It was literal relief from the heat. You can almost hear a child laughing as she smears a tiny dollop on her cheeks, stealing a taste of luxury. Perfume is essential in every aspect of life. Flowers, herbs, and attar oils infuse homes, temples, and robes. You pass a stall where merchants grind jasmine, rose, and vetiver into oils that shimmer like liquid gold. A fragrant mist clings to your hair, your skin, your clothes, and suddenly you're part of the sensory tapestry. Historians still argue how much perfume influenced social hierarchies versus personal expression, but the effect is undeniable. Scent here is identity made tangible. And hair. Oh, the hair. Women braid, coil, and adorn it with gold threads, flowers, and beads, each style signaling marital status, caste, or festival. Men use oils to soften and scent, creating subtle shine that suggests refinement. Hairstyles and pigment together form a living language of communication, subtle yet unmistakable to those who understand it. You notice small ritual objects tucked among the powders, tiny charms, shells, and incense cones. These aren't just decorative, they're talismans. Beauty, devotion, and protection converge, creating an intimate performance every time someone looks into a mirror or into a river reflecting their image. By evening, the temple bells ring, and the sky glows with the colors of dusk. Women carry baskets of pigments home, children chase after stray dogs, and the scent of flowers and spices lingers on the breeze. You dip a finger into a small jar of crimson powder, tracing a line across your own cheek. It stains gently, impermanent, yet meaningful. For a moment, you feel a connection across centuries, a thread of ritual, artistry, and devotion that links you to every hand that has ever painted, powdered, or perfumed itself in this land. You lean back against the temple wall, closing your eyes, letting the golden light wash over you. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings again, soft and persistent, as if reminding you. Makeup isn't merely adornment here. It's identity, spirituality, and celebration all at once. And as you breathe in the mingled scents of earth, flowers, and ritual oils, you realize that beauty, in its truest form, has always been an act of love, of oneself, one's community, and the divine. The golden light of India's temples fades behind you as you step into a Europe shadowed by candlelight and stone. Medieval castles and monasteries stretch across foggy landscapes. The air smells of damp earth, burning tallow, and herbs hung in bunches from rafters. Here, makeup exists in tension between faith and vanity, concealment and expression. You trudge through narrow streets and vaulted halls, noticing how color hides as much as it reveals. You wander into a candlelit chamber where noble women sit quietly. Their faces are pale, powdered with lead and chalk, almost luminous in the dim glow. Some cheeks wear faint red pigment, others are ghostly white. You remember Egyptian queens and Roman matrons. But now there's a moral weight. Beauty is potentially sinful. Historians still argue whether pale skin in medieval Europe signified virtue, illness, or privilege. But the message is clear. Complexion reflects social and spiritual hierarchy. Perfume remains essential. Women carry pomanders, spheres of fragrant herbs suspended on chains. Not just decoration, these keep miasma and bad air at bay, part of early public health belief. You sniff one. Rose petals, cloves, myrrh, all wrapped in linen. You can almost hear a lady whispering to her maid, "Breathe lightly, or the angels might notice." Humor dances quietly amid the heavy rules. And yet, there is subtle rebellion. Some women tint their lips with crushed berries or saffron, daring to bring color to otherwise pious faces. Others use kohl discreetly to darken eyelashes and brows, just a shadowy hint beneath hoods or veils. Makeup in this era is secretive, personal, almost coded. Quirky fact: some recipes included ash or even crushed insects to create pigment. Pretty effective, though not the most pleasant application. You shudder slightly, imagining the medieval DIY cosmetics blog version. Men, too, occasionally embrace decoration. Nobles might polish fingernails with mixtures of egg white and chalk or tint cheeks for courtly events. Yet societal pressure dictates subtlety. Anything overt risks scandal. Historians still argue whether men's occasional use of cosmetics reflects vanity or practical theatricality in tournaments and masks. Religious life shapes beauty norms profoundly. Convents and monasteries emphasize modesty. Excess makeup is condemned as sinful. Yet, painted manuscripts and altar figures depict saints with delicate rosy cheeks, glossy lips, and finely arched brows. The contradiction is striking. Art celebrates beauty while doctrine admonishes it. You feel the tension, sensing that human desire to adorn can never be fully contained. You wander a marketplace where herbalists sell pigments and scented oils. Here, even the poorest can access a touch of decoration: crushed berries for lips, ground herbs for cheek tint, and scented oils to mask the odors of labor. Beauty becomes both social stratification and personal agency, depending on what hands hold the pigment. And then there's the fringe theory. Some women may have used crocodile or lizard dung in facial treatments for tightening and preserving the skin. It sounds absurd, but you recall earlier Nile cosmetics and realize humanity has always flirted with extremes for beauty. You can't help smiling at the audacity of it all. As twilight settles over stone towers, you pause by a fountain where reflections ripple. Women and men glance quickly at themselves in water, adjusting color and powder in secret. Makeup here is cautious, hidden, powerful. It signals survival, identity, and resistance simultaneously. You breathe deeply, inhaling candle smoke, incense, and the faint metallic tang of mineral pigments. Somewhere amid the shadows, the faintest echo of past civilizations whispers, "Your beauty is yours to define, but tread carefully, lest it summon both envy and virtue." And as you step into the darkened streets, you sense that the medieval world has taught you one thing. Makeup can be quiet, subtle, and still profound. A hidden story on the skin, a secret signal for those who know how to read it. You leave the foggy streets of medieval Europe behind and feel the chill of northern castles as the Renaissance dawns. The air smells of wet stone, fresh paint, and inked manuscripts, mixed with faint perfumes imported from Italy and France. Here, beauty explodes into display. You trudge past piazzas and galleries, and suddenly the world itself seems like a palette, vivid, deliberate, and intoxicating. In Florence, women sit before polished mirrors, delicately mixing powders and oils. White lead for the face, cochineal for lips, and saffron for a golden glow on cheeks and neck. Pale skin is no longer simply a marker of virtue. It is a celebration of refinement and wealth, an open declaration that you do not labor in sun or soil. You watch a young noblewoman trace fine lines across her eyelids with kohl imported from Egypt, and it strikes you. Renaissance Europe is a bridge between medieval restraint and modern flamboyance. Historians still argue whether the rise of makeup was driven primarily by fashion, social status, or the rediscovery of classical ideals. You, standing beside a marble fountain, can see all three coexisting. Women study the symmetry of their faces against mirrors framed with gold, echoing Greek and Roman philosophy. Beauty is reason made visible. Perfume has become theater. Distilled flowers and herbs, jasmine, rose, lavender, and iris, fill perfumeries and courts. Nobility uses scents as social signaling, subtle for daytime audiences, intoxicating for evening balls. You catch a whiff of ambergris, imported from distant seas, and think, perfume is a luxury that announces both wealth and taste. And here's the fun bit. Renaissance women often used mixtures of lead, vinegar, and egg white to create paste that made skin gleam like alabaster. Toxicity aside, the effect was radiant. You laugh softly, imagining the socialite dabbling with poison on her cheeks, whispering, "It's fashionable, darling, but also lethal. Just a thrill." Eyebrows and hair take on artistic dimensions. Women shape brows delicately, often removing all hair and redrawing fine arches in charcoal or soot. Hair is powdered, colored, or adorned with jeweled pins. Men also embrace subtle cosmetics. Roses for the lips, balm for the beard. A hint of rouge for the cheeks. The line between theatrical performance and daily grooming blurs. You wander into an artist's workshop, where a painter studies a model's face for a portrait. Rouge, lead powder, kohl. Each layer is immortalized in oil on canvas. Makeup here is both tool and muse. You can almost hear the painter murmur, "Capturing the ephemeral becomes eternal through art." Historians still debate how much these portraits reflect everyday practice versus idealized imagery, but you can see the continuity. Pigment becomes both expression and documentation. Quirky detail alert. Some women used crushed beetles and cinnabar to tint lips, occasionally leaving a faint red stain on the teeth. Imagine trying to smile for a fresco and realizing your teeth are unknowingly flaming. The Renaissance may have been sophisticated, but it was certainly bold. Theaters, balls, and courts demand performance. Makeup signals social intelligence, wealth, and cultural literacy. A slight rouge, a perfectly arched brow, or a trace of powder isn't vanity. It's conversation, negotiation, subtle storytelling. You watch women and men move with deliberate gestures, aware that every glance, every sparkle, is read by attentive eyes. As twilight bathes Florence in gold, you pause atop the Ponte Vecchio. Reflections of lamps dance on the river, mirroring faces enhanced with pigment, perfume, and pride. For the first time, you feel a distinct modernity creeping into makeup. It's no longer just survival, ritual, or status. It's creativity, play, and the pleasure of self-expression. The Renaissance teaches that beauty, when intentional, becomes a performance of intellect, artistry, and audacity. You inhale deeply, smelling polished wood, flowers, and stone. Somewhere, the soft whisper of a lute drifts across a courtyard. You realize that makeup has finally become a dialogue between self and world, a carefully curated identity that transcends mere necessity. You step away from the bridge, imagining how centuries of humans have painted, powdered, perfumed, and performed, and how, in some form, we continue that same intimate, dazzling ritual today. You leave the Renaissance bustle behind and step into the opulent courts of Baroque Europe. The air is heavy with incense, wax candles, and the faint scent of crushed flowers. Marble halls echo with music, and every surface shimmers with gilding and velvet. Here, beauty is spectacle, strategy, and social armor all at once, and you quickly notice the stakes are higher. One smudge could ruin an alliance. In France, you see women in towering wigs, their hair powdered white and scented with orange blossom or violet. Their faces gleam with lead-based white powder, their lips carefully tinted crimson, their cheeks dabbed with rose-colored pigments. Pale skin is no longer just a sign of nobility. It's currency. A well-adorned visage signals refinement, wealth, and political leverage. You step closer to a mirror and see your own reflection fading into the candlelight, imagining the immense effort that went into preparing for even a single courtly gathering. Historians still debate whether the Baroque obsession with pale faces was fashion-driven or a symbol of moral superiority. Perhaps both, you think, as you watch a young noblewoman adjust a delicate lace collar while her maid reapplies rouge. There's a calculated theatricality in every gesture, a performative beauty that communicates status without a word. Perfume is practically mandatory. Nobility carries sachets of attar, musk, and civet to create an invisible halo of aroma. Some even add cloves and ambergris imported from faraway lands. You inhale, dizzy with sophistication. It's not vanity, it's diplomacy. Smell becomes an unspoken announcement of pedigree and taste. Quirky note: some Baroque perfumers recommended reapplying scents throughout the day, leading to layers so intense they could almost knock someone over in a hallway. Imagine the olfactory chaos during a ball. Rouges and powders are indulgent, but sometimes dangerous. Lead-based pigments can cause illness over time, yet nobody seems to care. You picture a duchess laughing with friends, perfectly powdered, utterly oblivious that her glow is slowly poisoning her. Beauty, it seems, is timelessly ambitious and occasionally reckless. Men in the courts are not exempt. Aristocratic gentlemen dust their faces lightly with powder, darken their brows, and sometimes tint their lips for special occasions. Makeup is a social tool as much as a personal choice, a way to fit into the intricate choreography of etiquette. Historians still argue how far this practice spread among the general male population, but in the courts, it's undeniable. You wander past gilded mirrors and powdered nymph statues, each reflecting the idealized visage of the time. artists and apothecaries collaborate, creating cosmetics not just for adornment, but for legacy. A pigment mixed with saffron might signal your allegiance to a particular noble family. A subtle visual signature like a heraldic crest. Quirky detail. Some women used tiny ribbons of gold leaf embedded into their powdered faces, catching candlelight and adding an almost supernatural glow. You imagine the flicker of chandeliers making faces sparkle like living jewels. And while it sounds ostentatious, it underscores the Baroque philosophy. Beauty must command attention and evoke awe. By evening, you find yourself in a grand ballroom. The orchestra plays, chandeliers blaze, and every face is carefully curated, powdered, scented, and strategically expressive. You notice the rhythm: pale face, crimson lips, scented halo, powdered wig. Every layer is a statement, an armor, a performance. You realize that in Baroque Europe, makeup has reached theatrical heights, blending artistry, identity, and politics into a single dazzling package. As the night deepens, candlelight flickering against mirrors and tapestries, you catch your reflection one last time. Powder, rouge, fragrance, all speak a language refined over centuries. You sense the pattern now. From caves to courts, from Nile to Baroque ballrooms, makeup is never just cosmetic. It's survival, devotion, status, artistry, and a whisper of audacity. And in these gilded halls, it shouts. You step out of the Baroque grandeur into the powdered streets of 18th century Europe, where Rococo elegance reigns. The air is fragrant with roses, orange blossom, and freshly baked pastries, mingling with the faint metallic scent of lead-based powders. Every doorway seems gilded, every mirror beckoning. You move past salons buzzing with conversation, laughter, and whispered intrigues, and realize that here, makeup is both art and social currency in its most refined, playful form. You approach a petite dressing table where a young woman applies a soft white powder to her face using a delicate puff. Her cheeks glow a gentle pink from cochineal, her lips a subtle coral. Unlike the Baroque period's dramatic contrasts, Rococo favors a softer, natural appearance. Pale skin, a faint blush, and light rouge reflect youth, charm, and refined taste. Historians still argue whether the subtlety was truly aesthetic or a performative restraint designed to signal elite sophistication. But the effect is undeniably elegant. Perfume is everywhere, layered and luxurious. Women carry delicate scented sachets. Men dab a tar or civet behind their ears and on their necks. Fragrance is subtle, intimate, a way to communicate refinement and social awareness without uttering a single word. You catch a whiff of lavender, orange blossom, and jasmine, and suddenly the air feels alive with invisible conversation. The whimsicality of Rococo is not limited to fragrance. Small beauty patches, or mouches, dot the faces of the elite. Tiny black velvet or silk shapes arranged on cheeks, temples, and foreheads. Each one carries meaning. A heart could signify love, a star ambition, a crescent moon mystery. You lean closer to watch a young woman affix hers, imagining the playful messages encoded on her porcelain face. Quirky detail. Some women had entire designs of patches spelling secret messages in courtly intrigue. Think of it as the 18th century version of texting with your face. Kohl and eye pigments persist, but gently. Eyebrows are shaped, darkened just enough to frame the eyes. Hair is powdered with starch or scented powders, styled in elaborate curls and towering arrangements, adorned with ribbons, feathers, and even miniature bird cages. You pause, trying not to stare, imagining the layers of effort behind each coiffure. It's labor, performance, and art rolled into one. Men, too, participate in this playful aesthetic. Powdered faces, scented wigs, and subtle lip and cheek tinting are common in the courts of France, especially for formal balls. They are partners in this visual language, practicing restraint while still displaying refinement and social acumen. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or confined to elite court life. But you notice the symmetry and deliberation of each look. A small apothecary nearby catches your attention. Bottles glimmer in the sunlight. Pigments, powders, and perfumed oils line shelves. You notice recipes for subtle cheek tints, delicate lip colors, and fragrances combining roses, vanilla, and exotic spices. Some tinctures are even rumored to have restorative properties, though science was more suggestion than proof. A quirky fact: powdered lead and mercury are still in use despite obvious hazards. Beauty, after all, sometimes flirts with danger. You wander to a terrace overlooking a garden maze. Candlelight flickers on fountains, mirrors, and the pale faces of evening strollers. Makeup here is about charm, subtle seduction, and signaling education and refinement. You watch a lady tilt her face to the moonlight, checking her reflection, adjusting a blush, and repositioning a tiny patch. Each movement feels like an intimate performance, a secret conversation with both herself and the world. By nightfall, the gardens glow faintly under lantern light. Perfumed winds carry distant laughter and soft music. You realize that Rococo makeup is the culmination of centuries. It blends ritual, art, identity, and play into an elaborate visual game. A blush isn't just color. A patch isn't just ornament. A scent isn't just fragrance. They are tools of expression, signals of taste, and whispers of personality. You lean against a balustrade, inhaling the layered aromas of flowers, powder, and candle smoke. Somewhere behind you, a lute strums a soft melody. You understand that Rococo, with its delicate flourishes, charm, and whimsy, has transformed makeup into a language, one of subtlety, elegance, and playful artistry. Its beauty is conversation, performance, and poetry. The Rococo gardens fade behind you as you step into the tumultuous streets of the 19th century, where industrial smoke mixes with the scent of perfumes and early cosmetics. Cities hum with horse-drawn carriages, chatter, and the faint hiss of steam engines. You trudge past storefronts advertising pomades, powders, and patent medicines, realizing that makeup is no longer purely for aristocracy. It is beginning to touch broader society. Women of the Victorian era approach beauty with caution and codified restraint. Pale skin remains ideal, signifying virtue and leisure, but rouge is carefully applied to cheeks and lips in subtle moderation. Lip color is soft, often derived from natural ingredients like carmine or beet juice, because anything bold is considered scandalous. You notice a young woman smoothing her powder with a fine puff, her reflection in a polished mirror framed in dark wood. Historians still debate whether this approach reflects genuine moral concern or social control over female expression, but the visual language is undeniable. Fragrance becomes a marker of sophistication. Perfume bottles, now crafted from glass with intricate stoppers, carry floral and resinous scents designed for subtlety rather than overpowering the room. A whiff of lavender, rose, or violet speaks to refinement and hygiene, both highly prized in an era obsessed with propriety and cleanliness. You inhale the soft perfume from a nearby counter and marvel at the layers of intention behind each application. A quirky detail emerges. Victorian women sometimes used arsenic-based powders to whiten skin. Deadly as it sounds, it was fashionable. and pamphlets even circulated with instructions for careful dosing. You can't help smirking at the lengths humans go for beauty, echoing previous centuries' dangerous flirtations with lead and mercury. Beauty has always been an adventure in chemistry, with occasional peril. Eyelashes are subtly darkened with kohl, and eyebrows shaped modestly to frame the eyes. Hairstyles shift depending on social standing and occasion. Braids, buns, and delicate curls dominate. Some women conceal hair beneath bonnets or hats during the day, revealing carefully arranged curls only in private or in the drawing room. Its elegance balanced with societal expectation, a quiet negotiation of self-expression. Men's grooming evolves as well. Mustaches and sideburns are meticulously styled, and some men apply subtle powders or creams to maintain a youthful appearance. Society begins to value cleanliness and presentability as markers of respectability, and grooming, including early cosmetics, becomes a subtle extension of identity and social position. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or limited to urban elites, but evidence suggests that grooming was an increasingly public concern. You step into a perfumery, noticing shelves lined with tins, jars, and bottles. Lip colors, powders, and face creams are labeled carefully, often with claims of moral, health, or beauty benefits. Apothecaries play dual roles, merchants and cosmetic innovators, offering products that blend science, superstition, and artistry. You imagine a young woman whispering to her friend, "This cream will smooth wrinkles, brighten cheeks, and improve your moral standing." How convenient. Quirky, yet fascinating. Victorian theater heavily influenced daily cosmetic practices. Stage techniques for highlighting features under gaslight seeped into urban fashion, from contouring cheeks to defining lips. You realize makeup is no longer only about ritual, social signaling, or aristocratic display. It is increasingly performative, drawing cues from theater, art, and emerging photography. As evening descends over cobblestone streets, you glimpse women adjusting parasols, smoothing gloves, and checking powdered faces against shop windows. Makeup has become a bridge between nature and culture, private and public, performance and propriety. Each careful brushstroke tells a story of aspiration, social navigation, and self-expression. You breathe in the mingled scents of rosewater, lavender, and smoke, realizing that 19th century cosmetics transform personal adornment into a subtle art of civility. The era is cautious, elegant, and experimental, blending restraint with the curiosity and ingenuity of industrial innovation. And as you walk through the fading glow of gas lamps, you notice that makeup has quietly, persistently moved closer to the hands of everyone, not just the privileged. Steam rises from the streets as you step into the dawn of the 20th century, where electric lights hum and the world is speeding toward modernity. The air smells of motor cars, freshly printed magazines, and the lingering scent of perfumes that now travel in sleek glass bottles rather than bulky apothecary jars. You trudge past department stores bustling with shoppers, noticing makeup displays more abundant and accessible than ever before. Here, cosmetics are not just for aristocrats. They are part of everyday life, democratized yet infused with new social meaning. The first thing you notice is the boldness of color. Women in the early 1900s tint their lips in reds and pinks derived from safer chemical dyes, cheeks glowing with rouge, and eyes subtly lined with kohl or graphite. Pale skin is still admired, but the emphasis shifts toward vibrancy and health, signaling vitality rather than only class. You watch a young woman testing a lipstick shade against her wrist, then applying it to her lips with a quiet, purposeful smile. Historians still argue whether the explosion of color was purely aesthetic or a social statement reflecting newfound freedom and mobility, but the effect is undeniable. Makeup has become an emblem of personal agency. Perfume becomes increasingly industrialized, packaged to appeal to mass markets. Chanel's early floral scents, Guerlain's refined compositions, and the proliferation of boxed perfumes mean fragrance is no longer just elite adornment. It's aspirational, available to anyone who can afford a small luxury. You inhale a hint of violet and amber, imagining it trailing along the bustling avenues and theaters, announcing presence, personality, and intention. Quirky fact: during World War I, lipsticks were reportedly made in military red, both for morale and practicality. Soldiers and nurses alike wore them. Cosmetics were not frivolous. They were tools of psychological resilience, a kind of armor in chaotic times. You smile at the thought of lipstick as a tiny, defiant act of courage amid trench warfare and rationing. Hairstyles evolve alongside cosmetics. Women's hair is shorter, bobbed, and often slicked with oils or pomades to frame the face. Eyebrows are defined sharply or rounded delicately, complementing expressive eyes. Men's grooming remains meticulous, with pomades and subtle creams creating clean, fashionable appearances. Makeup and hair are becoming tools of self-expression and identity rather than strictly social obligation. Historians still debate whether this modernity pushed women into performance or liberated them. But either way, the act of adorning oneself now carries a social and cultural resonance previously unseen. The era also brings scientific innovation. Foundations, powders, and rouges are increasingly standardized, safer, and widely marketed. Quirky yet true. Some early ads claimed products could restore youth, cure minor ailments, or even boost intelligence. Clearly a mix of marketing hyperbole and societal fascination with progress. You imagine a department store clerk earnestly explaining that a blush could improve your complexion and your character. You wander past theaters and cinemas, where makeup borrows heavily from the stage and screen. Contouring, highlighting, and bold lip colors are influenced by film lighting and photography. Makeup becomes an art of visibility, a way to be seen and understood in new public spaces. Women apply lipstick before boarding streetcars. Men dab subtle powders before posing for early portraits. It's both performative and intimate, blending technology with tradition. By twilight, you find yourself in a small park, watching passers-by touch up their lips, cheeks, or eyes. Electric lamps flicker overhead, and the world feels alive with energy, possibility, and self-expression. Makeup has transformed yet again, from ritual and aristocratic display to personal empowerment, experimentation, and democratized art. Every brushstroke is a choice, a declaration, and a connection to centuries of humans who have sought identity, confidence, and beauty through color, scent, and care. You inhale the mingled aromas of lipstick, powder, and evening air, realizing that by the 20th century, makeup has become more than ornamentation. It is a conversation between self and society, tradition and innovation, visibility and intimacy. You step forward, feeling connected to all the hands and faces that have painted, powdered, and perfumed through history, each contributing to this vibrant, evolving narrative of human expression. You stride into the vibrant, frenetic world of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, where neon lights, electric music, and global media create a new stage for makeup. The air smells of fresh foundation, synthetic perfumes, and a faint whiff of hairspray. Sidewalks are crowded with people experimenting with bold palettes, unconventional shades, and styles that defy tradition. Here, makeup is less about restriction and more about liberation, creativity, and identity. You pass a cosmetics counter in a bustling urban store where rows of lipsticks shimmer in every imaginable hue, from subtle nudes to electric blues and metallic purples. Foundations are formulated for every skin tone. Powders range from translucent to glittering, and mascaras promise lash lengths previously unimaginable. Historians still debate whether this explosion of options reflects true inclusivity or marketing savvy. But you can't help marveling at the freedom of choice. You see people using makeup as self-expression. Eyeliner extends into geometric art, lipstick becomes a canvas, and highlighter catches sunlight like liquid stars. Fringe trends, from goth to punk to cyber-inspired looks, mingle seamlessly with classic styles. The quirky tidbit: social media has turned everyday makeup into performance art, tutorials, and a form of personal storytelling. You almost laugh imagining Renaissance nobles live streaming their powdering rituals. It would have gone viral centuries too early. Perfume is now diverse, experimental, and niche. You smell citrusy, unisex blends, smoky oud, and ethereal florals passing by, each scent reflecting individuality. Fragrance, like makeup, becomes a way to signal personality, mood, or allegiance to subculture. Some people even craft DIY blends at home, mixing oils, herbs, and extracts, echoing the age-old rituals you've seen along the Silk Road or in ancient temples. Technology and science have changed formulas dramatically. Foundations are lightweight yet full coverage, eyeliners stay in place through tears and sweat, and lipsticks combine pigments with hydration and even SPF. Quirky fact: some modern formulas even include color-changing compounds, shifting shades depending on pH or temperature, a playful nod to centuries of experimentation with pigments. Men embrace makeup more openly than ever. Concealers, tinted moisturizers, brow gels, and lip tints are becoming mainstream, challenging the historical association of cosmetics solely with women. Historians still argue how much gender norms have truly shifted, but the evidence is clear. Makeup has evolved into a tool for anyone wishing to communicate confidence, style, or creativity. You step into a festival where cosplay, drag, and theatrical makeup dominate. Faces are transformed with color, contour, glitter, and prosthetics. Makeup is no longer hidden or subtle. It is a proclamation. People celebrate not only their own identities, but also the artistry of those who create these looks. The crowd is alive with motion, reflection, and color. A living, breathing tapestry of human creativity. And yet, even in this modern kaleidoscope, echoes of history remain. The careful application of blush, the ritual of fragrance, the symbolism of patterns, and the social signaling of color all harken back to ancient Rome, China, India, Europe, and beyond. You notice that makeup, throughout history, has always been more than pigment. It is identity, ritual, social language, and personal storytelling all in one. As night falls and city lights glitter like constellations, you pause to look at your reflection in a shop window. The spectrum of colors, textures, and forms surrounding you feels overwhelming yet comforting. You realize that makeup has always been human, a bridge between self and society, tradition and innovation, survival and self-expression. Across millennia, it has transformed, adapted, and persisted in intimate art connecting countless generations in the quiet, deliberate act of adorning oneself. The evening air is alive with scents, colors, and energy. Somewhere, a bus passes, playing faint music. Someone laughs nearby. A passerby touches up lipstick, eyeshadow, or powder. You breathe in deeply, feeling the pulse of centuries beneath your skin, realizing that this vibrant, modern celebration of makeup is the culmination of an unbroken thread. Humans endlessly experimenting, dreaming, and defining beauty on their own terms. As the night quiets and the city hum fades into a gentle whisper, you find yourself reclining, letting your limbs loosen and your mind drift. The rush of history, the scents, colors, rituals, and audacious experiments softens into a slow, deliberate rhythm, like the gentle lapping of waves against a shore. You feel the continuity of countless hands brushing powder, crushing pigments, and tracing lines across faces, each motion a silent act of care, expression, and connection. Breathe in slowly. Picture the pale Egyptian queen, the Silk Road merchant, the Chinese court lady, the Indian bride, the Victorian socialite, the Renaissance noble, and the modern makeup artist, all layered upon one another like a living tapestry. You sense the textures of powders, oils, and pigments brushing against centuries, and you realize that makeup is not merely decoration. It is history worn on the skin, a story told in color and scent, an intimate dialogue between self and world. The subtle shimmer of moonlight brushes your eyelids, soft and serene. You imagine the faint aroma of jasmine, rose, sandalwood, or modern vanilla lingering in the air, each note a whisper of human ingenuity and artistry. Tiny details, like a rouge-stained fingertip, a carefully positioned patch, or a flicker of eyeliner, become symbols of identity, courage, and personal narrative. Even the quirkiest, most unexpected practices, from beetle-based lip tints to crocodile dung facials, fold gently into the expansive history you have just traversed, reminding you of humanity's relentless curiosity and creativity. Now, let the pace slow further. Let the edges of your awareness dissolve into calm. You are carried on the soft currents of time, across deserts, temples, castles, salons, and bustling streets. Every brushstroke, every scented puff, every mirror glanced into reflects not just beauty, but connection, ritual, and the shared heartbeat of people seeking expression, confidence, and care. Your thoughts drift softly to the present, yet they carry the echoes of centuries, of all the invisible hands that have shaped what we see as beauty today. Feel the calm, the comfort, the quiet wonder of it all.